Hey everybody, it's Baileywiki, and I've got my camera on today because I got a special guest with me. I've got Atropos, also known as Andrew from the Foundry, the fearless leader of the Foundry team. Hey Andrew.
Yeah, hello. Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to get a chance to chat with you. We're doing some exciting stuff in addition to our usual bread and butter. So it's a good chance to, talk about it and showcase what we've been up to.
Well, you are doing some exciting stuff. When I saw, so we're going to talk about Ember today, and I have nothing to do with Ember here at Baileywiki except that I love every single thing coming out of it that I've seen. And I had some misconceptions of what it was early on, and you're going to help dispel some of those. Well, they've already been dispelled for me, but in case other people are curious, like for example, I thought
I'll
Ember was a
dispel some misconceptions and create some new ones.
yeah, let's do that. Let's go after it. But the reason we're meeting now is because there's been a lot on Ember, a lot of content you guys have been putting out, but people might still be curious, and especially my audience who are just like a bunch of notorious tinkerers, and they've been able to make Foundry do backflips with modules and other things. I'm seeing a lot of stuff that we really like in Ember, and that's getting me excited about it. And I'm sure it's getting other people excited about it. And this is a good time to talk about it because you guys are in the middle of a Kickstarter.
That's right. Yeah,
I think
Ember
it
is
started last week.
just about 1 week in, yeah,
Hmm.
to Kickstarter. It's been really exciting and stressful and, anxiety inducing, but we've done really nicely so far. There's a lot of people that have pledged so far. It's been really wonderful to see that support, but I know there's a lot of people out there in Foundry VTT land who are, avid users of Foundry who have not yet jumped on board Ember. And so hopefully our chat will be an opportunity to win a few of you over and brag on all the cool stuff that we're doing. But yes, Ember is a really interesting product. It's a hybrid game experience between the traditional pen and paper TTRPGs that we all love,
Hmm.
as well as kind of drawing some inspirations in from CRPGs or video games, the types of experiences that we think mesh best in a TTRPG setting. Now, Ember's still a collaborative storytelling experience. It's still a role-playing game for a game master and a group of players. It's still a game where the players and the GM have agency over the storytelling, but we're just doing a lot of things in terms of like gamification of certain systems or automation of certain types of gameplay moments. That is something that just isn't typically done in a TTRPG product, both because it can't be given the sort of physical print medium,
Hmm.
or because it just hasn't been tried in a digital realm. So, I think we're being a bit pioneering. That's not to say that this is the first like digital only product that's ever existed, but we're certainly have a bigger and very ambitious vision of what Ember is and will be. And yeah, all the details about it are on the Kickstarter page, but which I'm sure will be linked in this video. But yeah, I really encourage you to take a look at that. We also have a wonderful video on the Kickstarter that's sort of an introduction to what Ember is about. But we're going to unpack that video in this chat, I'm sure, and talk about some of the aspects of Ember, that we want to kind of pull the cover back on and take a look at like what's under the hood a bit.
So I love it. So let's first talk about like what Ember is because I thought Ember was a game system when I first heard about it. I think, oh, they're
Sure.
launching another game system, right? And there's Crucible and other things, but it's not a game system, right? In fact, it works with I think a couple of game systems at the moment, correct?
Yeah, we're offering Ember with dual system support for D&D 5th edition, which of course is the system which we all know and love, or in some cases don't love, but are familiar with. It's very familiar, well understood, hugely popular game system. And then we're also offering game system support for Crucible, which is an original game system, which is our in-house game system that we are developing sort of side by side along with Ember, that is also like Ember, made specifically for digital, made specifically for Foundry Virtual Tabletop. And it's quite different than D&D in many ways, while at the same time ultimately being a fantasy TTRPG. But beyond that, a lot of the similarities sort of drop off. But yeah, Ember is going to work really great for both systems, despite the fact that they are mechanically different. They're both really appropriate for this type of storytelling. And so, both systems will be a really great experience in which to play Ember. Ember is not on its own a game system. It is a game. It is a setting. It's a sandbox. It's a campaign. There's lots of ways you can use Ember. We just call it a game for the purposes of simplicity because it is so all encompassing in terms of what it includes. It's not like a part of a game. It's not calling it a module or an add-on would dramatically underrepresent the scope of what Ember is. Ember is a completely all-inclusive game experience, and you have your choice of rule set in terms of like when a dice roll is called for, how's that mechanical role handled.
Hmm.
But other than that, Ember provides really everything in a single box that you need for a multi-year role-playing experience if you're
Yeah.
playing it as an end-to-end campaign. But it also provides a setting that you can use for your own storytelling, that you can extend, you can add your own content into it, you can use it as a sandbox and a setting for telling your own tales in this magical universe that we've created with all of the rich visual and auditory and systematic features that are, exist in the Ember product to support that.
Well, I've got a couple questions on that. So we talked about this being this large world that's explorable. I remember this has got to be at least 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. You and I were talking, and you were like, "Hey, Bailey, I want to build this like massive world that that people can explore." I remember hearing it going, "Oh, that's crazy. You can't. That's too big. The scope is too big." Is this that idea? Is this kind of the development of that idea to
Yeah,
kind
I
of
mean,
sort of?
it's an incarnation of that idea. I think a lot of the creative genesis for Ember did start a couple years ago, and we really wanted to build something where it would have the depth and richness of the fantasy settings that we've all grown to love that others have made, but
Mhm.
those tend to kind of be created across a variety of media over a long period of time, not necessarily with the continuity or turnkey experience of just like, oh, you just want to play a game in this setting? Well, just hop in and the whole thing is there.
Yeah.
It's more like, okay, we'll hop in, but then, go buy these 12 products and then get these extra things. And oh, you're going to need some music. So make sure to subscribe to this creator and then get tokens from this person over there and then put them all together. And you can use these modules to make these things work together. And then you can write some macros to fill in the gaps. And then if you want to, it's like a whole elaborate recipe to get to a point where like you feel like you have a comprehensive game
Mhm.
experience at your fingertips. We're trying to give that to you with, one single installation.
Amazing. By the way, I haven't seen this before. I hope the frame rate is supporting it, but I see like little subtly animated edges of along the
There's
edges
so
of this
many
map.
little
So
decorative
good.
flourishes
Yeah.
here, like the animate. This is the region map for Ember, so the little animated edges of like the fog of war exploration
Mhm.
region. That's a fun thing. Or like you can notice certain like shadows, like places that cast a shadow. You can sort of see the shadows cast by that thing evolving over the course of the day. Like you can
Wow.
see like the little party banner shadow or the shadow from this like this monolith. As like I go back in time, you see how it's kind of like panning
Oh,
across
come
the
on.
region. And of course, like your discovery of new hexes and things. I'm gonna skip some of these gameplay events that are trying to trigger on me right now. But yeah, as you're exploring around and you're uncovering new hexes and you're finding things to discover, there's like so many like little
Wow.
visual
The
flourishes
time
on the
and the
region map.
time is counting down as you're moving.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's right. Yeah,
Man, there's
so
so many things just in the screen that are happening. You've got the
there's a lot
introduction
to
of
unpack.
time.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
lot to unpack. So each
amazing.
each hex in the world has, a coordinate, it has a biome, it has a terrain type, it has other things associated with it. Like we could go into a vista or an area map if that
Hmm.
hex supports it. And so we know, like, as we're moving around the world, we know what the travel cost is. We know how
Hmm.
long time to advance. There's some like pathfinding. So if I try and like
Hmm.
find a route over here, it knows like which hexes I'll have to go through in order to
Yep.
get to my destination. We know that that destination's 6 hours away. So if I actually like start making that journey, I'm probably going to get interrupted by an event that will happen and like break
Hmm.
my progress. But you notice like, yeah,
Hmm.
there it is. There's an event. I keep declining it, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
no, we don't want to play this one right now. But
So
yeah,
what's
have like
happening here from a technology perspective? Is this Are these things all being done with Core Foundry? Is there like extra sort of technology? Because there's no third-party modules or anything involved here, right? I mean, it's
Yeah, it's all core Foundry, but it's mostly using like a sort of lower level of the core Foundry API.
hmm,
So it's not necessarily using like tiles
okay.
the way that you might. We're kind of going straight to the source with, primary canvas objects and primary
Hmm.
sprite meshes, and we're like constructing this very elaborate area map. So you notice like this little settlement was discovered when I arrived here, and like the POI asset for that settlement toggles in once you've discovered it. It's not like a tile. If I go to the tiles layer, like there's no
Hmm.
tile here for me to select,
Interesting.
because it's using a sort of lower level of the Foundry API to do that. Um,
Is this stuff that will be exposed to developers some point in the future, or like
it all
where does
already
this
is, yeah.
technology
So
fit? Oh, it is.
it's
Okay.
it's all already in there. This is all
Hmm.
stuff that devs can already do, if you have the technical nous to do that. It
Wow.
it just requires more of a scripted approach and less of a sort of user interactive approach. And that's not to say we're recommending this as the path for everyone to take.
Sure.
This is just for us the kind of the way that we would go about doing these sorts of things.
It's
Um,
really great. I mean, it's the ultimate expression or showcase of what Foundry can do and Core Foundry, right? Without anything else, this is incredible that it's
yeah.
capable of all this.
Yeah,
Great.
there's a lot of cool things like these like caverns that you can go into where the kind of canopy comes off. Of course, like those are
Ah.
things you can do with tiles, and we're
Mhm.
doing similar things here. But like these crystals, like they all have this like very subtle kind of gleaming animation on them. And they actually all are sort of illumination sources. So the actual like
Mm,
structure of the crystals is creating light, like actually like technically in Foundry light.
mm.
Which is cool. And then there's no like light sources used for that. We're actually using the sprite structure of the crystals to project a sort of illumination in their respective areas. There's a lot
Wow.
of cool things like that that can be done. And it's all possible using our Foundry API. It's just, the tricky thing with Foundry is like providing a user interface into something is
Sure.
usually about like 50 times, 10 times, 50 times the work of providing the underlying infrastructure to support it. So we have so many features that we support at a low level in
Mm,
terms of what can be done in the code base. And many of those are hoisted up to the level of like what you can configure as a user
mm,
using a tile or using a light source or using a sound source or using a token, but not everything. It's
mhm.
just not possible for us to offer the full scope of possibilities in that kind of user configurable way. So we're able
Yeah.
to use a lot of the kind of power tools that are available to us as developers that other developers can also
Mhm.
use. But we're able to do that, and hopefully that's something that can pave the way a little bit for others who are interested in doing a similar type of thing to draw inspiration from or to follow along and to try similar things.
Yeah, and I do towards the end want to talk about where and how and if this opens up to third-party content and module developers of any kind. But we'll put a pin in that for a second. I want to see some more of the eye candy. So this is really great. This world map. Can you take us into like an actual map where you can drop tokens in and
Yeah, sure, of
explore
course.
around?
Um,
Or
let's
tell me if we need to cover some of the other things, because I also find interesting that you've got a concept of what we would call landing pages, but you have a place where players can go and look at their character sheets and inventory and look at like their global map and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, of course. Let me see here
Tell
if
me
this
what's
is a
the
good.
logical progression here, but
Yeah, I think maybe we could potentially start with like a landing page, but I can go into maybe I'll go to that first and talk about that, and then we could go into an area map, talk about that. Um,
I like it.
Landing page, that's a very personalized thing. Like everyone kind of wants something
Mhm.
different out of their own preferred landing page. We do provide one that's not all the way decorated to the extent that it will eventually be, but this is the scene in Ember that we use as kind of our campaign landing page, and the epic kind of Ember sound plays on this. This scene is called the Broken Tower.
Beautiful.
This shattered spire that you see in this scene, which is also a vista. So as you pan around, you can pan around the scene and kind of look at it from different angles, and everything is kind of parallaxed and like
Wow.
moves subtly in relation to each other. So you get like a sense of depth and scale, and you see kind of like as you look up the different. It may be subtle on the screen, but like the different little chunks of the floating tower are like moving a little bit, and um, in the distant background, you see some of the moons in the sky, and those moons correspond to the ones that are actually full or in the cosmology right now. So that skyscape is going to change over time as
Oh,
moons kind
come
of come.
on.
And so as a landing page, this one
So good.
scene kind of gives you a look at like what is the current state of your game, like what is the current time, what is the current. And so like as I advance towards dusk here, like we're gonna kind of go towards like a dusk view, and then we'll kind of get onto full night, and there's this sort of beautiful starscape where you can see
Whoa.
the moons more clearly. And so this is our landing page that kind of always lets you see like what does Ember look like right now in terms of the skyscape of it. Um, and yeah, so there may be eventually other things on this landing page, like some UI elements that help you track like where are you in the campaign, or like what are your active quests or something. But it's a little bit absent of those things at the moment. But the sort of visual look and feel, like we want this scene to be very sort of iconic for like what. Oh, it's okay. We're sitting down to play Ember now. Like this scene is helping me to immediately like re-enter
Yeah.
the headspace of my character and of the setting and of the feel of being in Ember. Um, and of course, it can be further customized if folks want to add things to this scene or whatnot. Or you make your own landing page for your game. But
Really? So
um,
is there is this just using like core Foundry editing tools to be able to drop in other things? Like how you said that you can edit these things. Like what are we talking about?
well, yeah, I mean, edit from the perspective of like you could, put your own like
Oh,
little.
by the way, some of the audio is still coming through. You could
Oh
feel
yeah,
free to
sorry,
turn
I
that off.
reloaded.
It was good to hear, but
I'll mute that. Yeah, you get
it
a
might
little bit of
clip you a little bit.
a little
Yeah.
bit of the broken tower music there, but I'll mute it so it's easier to hear our voices. Well, this is a Vista. So one of the things with all of our Vistas is that they are designed to be kind of engaging and interactive in a way, and that like things you can do with them. So, that one was obviously like a very grand distant panorama. This is one that's a little bit more like in tight on a scene that you might experience in one of our biomes, like the verdant paths where we were before. Now, this kind of like in-world view of what you're seeing, it's a scene in Foundry the same way that like a top-down map is. It's
Mm.
just the perspective is entirely different. So if I were to, get an actor out of my actor's sidebar, I can just drop my actor in here, and here I have a token, just the same as you would have a top-down token, but this is just a different, it's a token using the portrait artwork, and I can move this character around inside the Vista just the same way that you'd move a token around in any scene. But all of the different assets in the Vista have
Whoa.
a recognized depth or something. So I can like go behind this
Oh
plant, or I can kind of
man.
hide
I
behind this
love
little piece
it.
of stone. Like I'm kind of hiding out
Oh,
here. I can have like another character who's gonna come in here and like join the thing, and kind of look around at what's going on. I'll kind of put them back in the distance here. So you can have all these
wow.
characters in your scene just the same way that you would in a top-down area map, but all of the sort of parallax and everything works with that character in the scene for you to interact with that character as part of a passage of gameplay. And
Wow.
it's a very fun and dramatic way to tell stories in our world. And we have lots of different vistas for all of our different biomes. There's lots of them that all show different types of the world. And in this, oops, not that one, in this biome, like there's going to be a number of sort of pre-built composition options that you can choose from, probably more than this in the end. These are just ones that we've bothered to make so far. So like here I was on Verdant Paths 1, I'll just go to like composition 2, and it's a whole sort of different style of different style of scene, different type of
Hmm.
thing that's going on. We can do, I keep opening the builder. I keep wanting to go there. I'm going to go there next. Like this one, Verdant Paths 2 could be sort of empty, or we can put like a campsite in it. And if you're like, camping out after your day's
Yes.
adventure and you want to gather around the fire with your companions, for kind of some rest or downtime. These are the types of storytelling moments you can tell in all of our different biomes with this tooling.
Wow. So
Um,
am I looking at a series of tiles that just have data around where like what level they are in terms of depth?
Yeah, you can think of it that way. And again, like on the region map, if I go to the tiles layer, there's no actual tiles to
Mm.
select here.
Hmm.
But conceptually, it's built from the same type of parts because underneath every tile in Foundry is a primary sprite mesh. And so we're just going straight to the lower level API and we're programmatically assembling these scenes from their component parts without going through the UI to like configure them all as tiles. But
Hmm.
what you can do in these vistas, and this is part of the extensible nature of Ember. I can go to say like a blank. I'll go to like a blank version of the vista, and then I can
Hmm.
open up these builder tools, and I can go and I can make my own version. I can
Wow.
start grabbing some, grabbing. That's a small rock. I think we want some big rocks. Let's look for some like cliffs, like stone columns. So yeah, we'll put like some
Wow.
like kind of frame the shot with these two
Yep.
big stone
Hmm.
columns and then put some kind of rocky pillars back in the
Hmm.
background, maybe some big stone cliffs back here that we want to kind of frame the shot. And then I want something like some trees, so I'll go, it's like a sort of leafy plant. I'll put in the foreground some of these plants.
How are
uh,
you changing where they go? You're literally just as you go back or as you go up on the screen, it's going back in terms of depth, right? That's as easy
Yeah,
as it is.
it's going back in terms of depth. Yeah, so all I'm doing is moving my mouse, and it's smart enough to know as I move my mouse, like should it be in front of something or behind
Hmm.
something.
Oh
So it's
man,
really
this is
easy to
so
place
good.
all these. It's really easy to place all these assets with very little kind of fidgeting with it required. Now, sometimes I do have to like go in and make, do something like just kind of like make a correction to
Hmm.
something. But I can for the most part like decorate this whole, very, very lively, very beautiful, very comprehensive scene using, all these sorts of assets that are
Wow, and you've got
available.
the animation already baked into the
Yeah,
asset.
and
I
the
can see.
animation's already in. So like as soon as this tree goes down, it's already sort of swaying in the breeze a little bit for me. I don't have to like program that in later. These assets already know that like they should have some animation on them. So they just kind of does that automatically. Um,
Wow.
so yeah, I could kind of keep, oh, here's like maybe a sort of epic centerpiece of this like
Hmm.
noxious flower bulb. Like maybe we
Hmm.
want that to be the focal point of
Hmm.
this particular encounter that we're going to play. So I've built my scene now, and I could spend longer making this look even more impressive.
Well, you spent a minute and it's already a great scene. It's already more than we've
Yeah,
ever been able to do.
yeah,
And
it's just like a minute, and then I close out
yeah.
of the builder, and everything in here is working with the sort of depth and the parallax and everything. It's all kind of knows how it should function. So
Oh,
when
and
I
you've
drop
got the
that
yeah,
same
it does the
character,
parallax automatically too. That's
yep, everything's
amazing.
automatically wired. So you don't, all you have to do is just kind of visually build the scene, and then I'm able
Hmm.
to, use my characters in the scene the same way that I would in any of the ones that we pre-configured.
Wow, that is impressive. That's
And
worth the
all of the
price of
vistas are, of
admission alone.
course, all of them are, of course, also integrated with the day-night cycle, so, or weather. So
Mm,
like here, it starts raining in the world and it starts
sure.
raining in the vista, or like as the rain clears away and then we get into like dusk and nighttime, we get the sort of calendar synchronization as well. Um, Sort of everything stays in sync with your custom vistas as well.
Wow.
Um, so yeah, that there's some very powerful tools in here for, composing those sorts of scenes in many of our different gameplay biomes. But and I think these vistas are really wonderful for telling stories about social encounters or about exploration of the world. Exploration is so important to
Mm,
what we're doing in Ember. It's like a really pivotal cornerstone of what we're doing, and it's something that we want to always make you feel like you're being called upon and drawn to explore the world always as you go. um,
I love it. Well, speaking of
and so you
exploring
mentioned
the
like kind of
world,
area maps. Like we
yeah.
obviously love combat encounters as well. And so, we want to have great combat encounters to share with you. And so like we have, lots of beautiful top-down maps like this one. And these also have like really nice little sort of subtle parallax effects that you don't usually get with sort of these top-down maps. So it's subtle, so you don't it
Hmm.
you kind of have to wait until you're sort of when you see it, you'll see it, but it is kind of subtle. But like the foreground here, like the areas of the scene that are higher elevation than the background, like if you look at kind of where this like land bridge is in relation to the creature under it, as you're panning around the perspective of the map, you get this kind of very nice
Uh,
shifting of what you're seeing in relation to other things that helps you understand and sell the verticality of the scene. And we have almost 80 area maps that are like very intricately detailed, very immersive, really great for gameplay. And a lot of them, almost all of them, really have kind of like wonderful sort of built-in interactivity. So if I'll put like a couple characters down here, and I should emphasize like everything that is being shown here is all pre-alpha. So like we have a lot of things that still need polishing, still need refinement. There's a lot of work still to do, but yeah, like interactive.
how is the animation working that I see on the water? How's that water animation?
Yeah, so we have a kind of a layer of water uh, that's separate from other layers of the map, and then we apply a shader effect to it that gives it a sort of subtle, or a nice sort of animated effect.
Yeah.
We
So
also
what we
have.
would be used to with like a token magic effects shader that's applying some subtle animation that's being applied to just the water, like a separate layer for the water.
Yeah, it's being applied just to the water. And
Okay.
we also have, I haven't applied them in this map yet. So you notice you have these like waterfalls, but they're still
Hmm.
static. I need to go back and do them in this map, but I can show you, we have lots of sort of tricks that we have at our disposal for doing various types of effects. So like this waterfall over here where you see like the water moving and the particle animations and things, it's really nice. Like this waterfall is the type of thing that we can, use that wherever we have a waterfall in our
Okay,
world.
wait.
Or
You said you have particle animations? Is that a thing
yeah,
now?
so what you're seeing here, like in this waterfall,
Uh-huh.
um, it's not a video. We don't do anything with video
Uh-huh.
textures. Everything is sort of 2D sprite animation. And so
Uh-huh.
like the sort of foam spray that's coming off this waterfall is
Uh-huh.
just particle emitters of various like foam sprites.
So is that
Um,
a thing now in Foundry, or is that something that's going to be coming?
It's a thing now in Foundry. Anyone,
Really?
you can just write a little bit of code and do this. You have to know what you're doing, but yeah, this is all already possible to do.
Oh my gosh, there is particle emitters in Foundry. I need to know what this is. If somebody listening
Yeah, it's
in the
just technical.
comments,
It's sort of a technical level, but it's the same way that we're doing these like little drifting leaves that are floating, the pink little petals that are like
sure.
floating everywhere. These are all just sort of particles, just different configurations of particles that kind of emit across the scene.
Yeah.
Um, the interactive elements that I mentioned, you saw kind of a little bit on the Dripstones map, but also here, like these are really cool. We didn't really get a chance to show this too much in our Kickstarter video either. But in the world, there's different things that are interactable. So like you see when I hover on this flower, it gets
Yeah.
this purple highlight, and there's an interaction icon here, right? So
Hmm.
as a GM, I can have this flower bulb explode into this kind of pollen cloud. So I just click on it, and you get this kind of
Wow.
visual little like, explodey effect of like the bulb bursting. And we could have it like drop a template or something if we want to program it to like, okay, you need to make a con save or something if you're in the area of effect. These little interactables are sort of all over in lots of our maps, and some of them are player facing. Like sometimes the players can interact with a thing directly themselves. Sometimes it's GM only, something that just the game master can
Hmm.
do. To kind of add that little extra level of interactivity. It's almost like you can almost think of them as like macros, but macros that are actually like placed in the
Hmm.
scene as a
Yeah.
thing.
Yep.
There's
Yeah.
modules, of course, that can do similar things, but
Right. We've been talking about Monk's Active Tiles forever. You've got Sequencer, you've got a bunch of third-party
mhm.
modules that'll make these kinds of interactions work, but to see it embedded in a without modules in a native Foundry scene is pretty impressive.
Yeah, some other really fun things that we're doing with
And by the way, for those listening or for those watching Zoom, or I chose Zoom for good or bad reasons, it's I think struggling to keep up with um, what's going on here.
yeah,
It's
and
stuttering a little bit. So
we also have been I'm sharing this out of my own sort of local dev environment, so it's even a little bit less stable maybe than than we might otherwise like for showing something off. But another thing that's really cool in a lot of these maps
that's so
is,
good.
oh, audio again. um I love what we're doing with doors. Obviously, like, doors are one of, like, really cool sort of originating features of
Mm,
Foundry that, like,
hmm.
set us apart from some of our other competitors at the time. But
Yeah.
we're needing to take doors a step further. So we've got these beautiful animated doors that all kind of interact with, and you get that sort of visually tactile feedback of, like,
Wow.
interacting with the doors as you explore these areas. Secret doors as well. So, like, have like a secret stone sort of
Hmm.
sliding area that you can,
Nice
like,
touch.
sliding secret door that reveals. We've got doors that got, like, the pivoting bookcase, or the sliding, double sliding. We got all kinds of different door animations that are built in
Wow.
here. Wherever we use doors, we always make sure to animate those. That's kind of a little extra thing that we can do that adds the sort of levels of polish that we're always wanting to add to our stuff.
Wow. And
Yeah.
just this scene that I'm looking at, this thing's huge. What?
Yeah, the scenes in Foundry are generally quite large. Like, this is a pretty large complex that sort of a dungeon fortress that you would have to kind of infiltrate, or where there's many different problem solving solutions for how you would approach an area like this. But yeah, there's some very, very large, very expansive areas that we have. There's some of them are dungeons, some of them I'll, like, switch over. Some of them are kind of more like for exploration or sort of vibes, or like learning about the
Mhm.
world, like this whole sort of mountaintop temple
Oh yeah.
complex.
So overhead tiles, right? And are these multi-level scenes also? Did I see that?
Yeah, they are. They are multi-level. So, this, like, balcony here is at a higher level of
Hmm.
elevation than the lower part of the kind of chapel area over here. So you could, like, walk in at ground level and then walk
Hmm.
up the stairs, and, like, you'll automatically, like, increase your tokens
Hmm.
elevation a little bit, and then, like, you can walk around the balcony. And we're trying to make it as seamless as possible. Sometimes there is a seam,
Hmm.
and this is part of, like, the kind of things that we're getting out ahead of. Like,
Hmm.
we haven't necessarily solved everything yet, but we're trying to devise a solution that's going to be um, one that will be ultimately offered in Foundry Core V14
Hmm.
is what we're working
Right.
towards with this. So there's,
Well,
like, a lot
well,
of
as
kind of
as someone
challenges.
who's built probably 200 multi-level scenes, I can definitely
Sure.
give you advice on how I would do it.
Yeah,
But this is great to see this in
we
core.
know a lot of the challenges, and we know kind of a lot of the technical requirements, and we know things that there's an easier way to kind of work around it, but then there's something that we kind of are thinking about, like, well, what's the more robust or long term or sort of true way to solve this?
Yeah.
um and ultimately, like, you can swap a lot of things out. Like, I went to this map as an example of one of our biomes. This biome is called the Kaleidoscope Caverns. Kind of this meandering, beautiful, sort of crystalline
Hmm.
cavern area to explore. Like Vistas, many of our biome maps also have, like, composition variants that you can swap to. And I think what's interesting with these is that, like, of course, like, these walls,
Hmm.
um, different compositions may not have the same wall structure. And that's whether they're kind of alternative compositions of a scene, or the analog is, of course, like, you're going from the first level to the second level of the
Hmm.
building. the second level of the building doesn't necessarily have the same wall structure as the first level. It doesn't have the same fog of war exploration as the first level. It doesn't have the same
Hmm.
light sources or sound sources. And so when we switch from the pillar maze to something like the arcane machine, we're in a different environment. Like we've taken a shortcut of turning these walls invisible so that
Mm,
they
right.
just don't have any effect, but they're still
Hmm.
there. This is the kind of thing that like we're working long term towards like a better, more robust solution. Like we have some workarounds, we have some things that can work. We have some things where like you can have a different fog exploration here versus somewhere else. Like we have some tricks we can do,
Yeah.
but we're also like thinking about how do we do this in the right way for V14, and we're laying some of that groundwork now in V13. We're laying some of that groundwork in Ember,
Hmm.
and we're really working to kind of like in parallel and collectively get to some of those technical um you know that
Yeah.
place that we aspire to
But
be.
I recognize some of these workarounds, right? Because we've been doing these workarounds with Monk's Active Tiles and some
Yeah,
other things over the years, and that's sort of what you do. You kind of start where you start, but the fact that you guys are looking at the long view is really encouraging.
yeah, and you can, we're obviously like really trying to sell like, here's a wonderful sort of
Wow.
multi-level uh sort of town environment where you have very clearly like this very
Hmm.
strong parallax kind of like upper level, and then
Yeah,
you've
the
got places like,
faded background there or lower level, right?
yeah, the sort of faded background with sort of the blur effect. And of course, like we've got this really fun sort of elevator where like you can kind of ride the elevator to kind of take your
Oh,
token down
yes.
to the first level, and sort of the animated like scene transitions. Now, there
Oh
will be
man.
eventually when you get to the bottom of this elevator, like an automatic switch you over to the
Yeah.
lower scene. We haven't programmed that in yet, but that's a simple thing to do. That's just a like little
Wow.
missing piece. But for example, like the
Even the
entire
even
sort
the
of,
token was fading
yeah, the token kind of
in
getting
the initial.
darker, like to sell
That's
the
good.
perspective. But yeah, like here's like
Incredible.
the lower level where you would come out at the base of the elevator and have this
Mm.
whole other like massive section of this beautiful sort of sea cove town to explore. All of these buildings that you can enter and interact with the characters in. Like there's so much gameplay
Wow.
in these sorts of areas for you to kind of uncover. And yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
Well, we covered a lot. This isn't going to be an exhaustive video. You guys who are watching, you can
It
go and
couldn't be. We have way too many.
it's
We
too
have way too
much.
many features for that.
Yeah, but I would definitely encourage everyone to check out the Kickstarter page. I'll be supporting this Kickstarter. I can't get enough of what I'm seeing here. So really impressive. Anything else that you want to show us before I ask you? I do want to ask about just kind of where this is going, including where third parties might get involved at some point along the train stop.
Yeah.
But
So third party integration is an interesting possibility. I think like we need to make sure that Ember is successful as a first party product before we can really reliably or credibly, extend the invitation for creators to jump on board with us and uh, and sort of experience create content using this framework. But it is something that we've been very much thinking about all along the way, and there's so many ways to extend Ember using the same sort of builder tools that our team ourselves internally is using
mhm,
to create the game. And most things that we're using now to make Ember, like we have tooling for that thing so
mm,
that the same tooling that we're using on the team is
right.
tooling that other creators can use, whether it's someone who's a professional creator or
Mhm.
whether it's someone who is homebrewing and wanting to extend the Ember functionality
Yeah.
using their own homebrew content. So like
Well,
all of these
as a creator, I'm looking at vistas and I'm looking at the maps. I'm like, I want to make a Vista for every map I produce, or a set of Vista assets for every. I just did a tropical islands release, right?
yeah.
Um, I could imagine my ability to create maps, but create these immersive things just fills me with joy, right? So, yes, I'm putting my name on the list for early alpha adopter, third party. But it just the platform for storytelling that you guys are creating here is really innovative
Yeah.
and really exciting.
And for content as well. I mean, I think, one of the thing, speaking of tropical islands, we can go down to, we can go find one. I think ocean. Oh, here we go. Um,
Wow, wait. So as you were scrolling, it was loading more parts of the map. Am I
yeah, and
understanding that
we
right?
have to do it that way
Of course,
because
yeah, yeah. But just the fact that that's a thing is great.
yeah, it's sort of like Google. It's sort of like Google Maps, where like,
Sure.
it's a very tiled approach where we're only going to try and render whatever's in view for you right now to, be
Absolutely.
efficient for performance. So like we have to sometimes have a little buffering, and there's ways that we can maybe make that hopefully nicer eventually. But yeah, there's occasionally a little bit of texture pop in, but but the world is theoretically seamless now that we've done that. I mean, one fun thing for the Foundry fans out there is if you look at our scene configuration for our region map here, it's a casual 1.5 million pixels uh, is the size of this particular scene. So
Wow.
obviously we're not going to render a 1.5 million pixel square on anyone's hardware.
Hmm.
But we do have a framework for the world as a seamless, sort of infinitely explorable space that we can expand on later if we want. And so the
Wow.
coordinates and things like this hex here, of course, is like 32952944 because all of the coordinates of things are expressed in global
Hmm.
world space, which we can expand at any point
Wow.
that we want later. Um, but yeah, our quest tooling is really nice for creators as well. So like for example, one of these quests like the Leviathan's Trove, you are defining all of these gameplay events, you're orchestrating them into a logical sequence of flow, prerequisites, choices, and consequences. Each of these events, like the luring the Leviathan when you're editing this, and the editing UI is pre-alpha. Like we haven't put a lot of effort into like making this
Sure.
beautiful yet, but like you're able to configure all of these things about like where does this event take place? What's the probabilities of it? What are the
Wow.
prerequisites? What happens when the event occurs? And in conjunction, it creates this, really amazing gameplay flowchart that happens in the world.
Incredible.
And we can even visualize that. Like we can show you what this quest looks like to play, with a like nice sort of flowchart visualization. That, I guess I'll go back to my token over here in the Forest of Stone and show you like one of these, like over the moon. You can kind of see like the
Ah, yeah.
points of like where this quest is going to occur.
Yeah.
What are the events that would happen in this quest if you play it out. And yeah, you can kind of get, as the GM, you can have this very visual way to both understand the gameplay that you're going to experience as well as kind of plan it out and see what's coming up ahead. So yeah, there's some really great tooling in here that
Wow.
is designed like very content creator friendly and really amazing in terms of like the tooling you can use to create these sort of gameplay experiences that are populated into the world.
Amazing. Andrea, this is like the coolest thing I've seen. Well, my whole world is Foundry, so any kind of innovation is great, but this is like it's kind of like all the things that I love coming together in one massive world that's easy to play. Okay,
Yeah.
let's close out with is there anything about the Kickstarter that people should know? I think the last day of the Kickstarter is at the end of this month.
October 2nd is when it
Okay,
will end. So there's a
October
little
2nd.
while left, depending on when this video goes live, but definitely uh, there's a few things. Yeah, you should definitely please check out the Kickstarter page. There's so much information there. If you want to see a little bit of a taste of Ember in action, we're doing a wonderful live play series with our good friends at the Glass Cannon Network. Those episodes are airing every Wednesday. So probably by the time this video drops, there may be two out for you to watch,
And they're
depending.
really good, by the way. If you guys haven't tuned into the first one, I mean, Glass Cannon uh, cast is a bunch of pros. It's
Yeah, I had
funny.
a great time working with them, but it's a way to sort of see a pretty unfiltered, authentic look at like what is gameplay in Ember like. Another thing that I would point
Yeah,
out
I would
is,
also say, by the way, while you bring that up, is there's a whole character creation process. There's all sorts of stuff that we didn't talk
yeah.
about in this that you guys need to check out. And it's actually the Glass Cannon series does a really good job of kind of walking you through that.
Yeah, we in over the course of those 4 episodes, we get kind of a cross section of everything. So you get a
Yeah,
little taste of everything that Ember's about. Of course, it's just 4 episodes, so don't go longer than that. But yeah, it's a great way to sort of sample what Ember is all about. Another thing to maybe check out is, of course, I mentioned that Ember will support both D&D and Crucible later in the month. It's not out just yet, but there will be a public Crucible playtest updated for V12. That if you're interested to check out that rule system, like maybe you're sitting on the fence about Ember and it's like, well, I like this, but I don't really want to play 5e. Let's see what this Crucible thing is all about. There'll be an article and maybe a short video about it as well, like walking through that system. And so that's something you could take a look at later in the month and check out our stretch goals too. We're working towards a really exciting stretch goal right now with the sunken city, which I really hope we unlock because it'll be awesome if we get a chance to do that. We have this whole underworld portion of the area map. So if I teleport us over to Arcturel right now, which is this like big sinkhole, right? Now, eventually there'll be a little POI there, not just an empty hole, but imagine that we are here and we want to go down into the pathways. We can do that. And here we are in
oh,
the
wow,
underground area, sort of our version of like the vast
wow.
underground realm.
So so even the world map has different levels that you can navigate
That's right.
through.
Even the
Hmm,
world map has different levels that you can explore. So
incredible.
um, if we unlock that sunken city stretch goal, then we'll be able to do a cool sort of under deep sea region in a particular place that we really want to be able to do that. So
Amazing.
um,
I want the sunken city for sure. You hear that, guys?
yeah, we gotta get that unlocked.
Love it. Awesome. Well, Andrew, this is impressive. I can't believe it. Every time I see something about Ember, I see more stuff that gets me excited. Honestly, just the vistas alone, I'm sold. So the rest of this is quite a lot of icing on the cake. Well, so for everybody else, check out the link to the Kickstarter in the video description. I'll also link to the live play series that's going on with Glass Cannon. And if you have questions or you're excited or whatever, if you have questions for Andrew, leave them in the comments, and I'll go kick him to go answer some of the comments here. Um, if you guys have some questions for him. And other than that, Andrew, thanks so much for the walkthrough. This is just amazing.
Of course, yeah. Great chatting with you, Bailey, and I appreciate you taking the time to learn a little bit more and help us hype up Ember and help share it with your community. And I hope that for those of you watching, you've seen something here to get really excited about that at least has piqued your curiosity to go and learn more. So please do check it out. And if you're able to support, thank you so much. Of course, if you're not, just even helping us to spread the word a little bit by sharing this around with folks in your own gaming groups is so appreciated. So thank you all so much for that, and I hope to get a chance to talk more Ember with you in the near future. Maybe once we get a little bit closer to our alpha playtest, or maybe doing something with Crucible. Who knows? We'll see if we can do another one of these sometime before too long.
I love it. Hey, I'll raise my hand to be a player in a live play sometime.
Yeah, awesome.
Great. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Go ahead and like this video, leave comments. That helps other people see this if you want to help spread the word about Ember. And in the meantime, Andrew, keep up the good work, and we'll see you next time.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Take care.
All right.